Hello everyone, Disha here. Welcome back to this video. We're gonna start with the last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is chapter 18th, which is the conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. Let's come to the first shloka of this chapter, which says, Arjun said, O mighty armed one, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation, tyag, and of the renounced order of life, sannyas. O killer of the Kesi demon, master of the senses. So Arjun is talking to Krishna in this shloka. And he's referring to Krishna as the killer of the Kesi demon, master of the senses. Now coming to the explanation of this shloka. Actually, the Bhagavad Gita is finished in 17 chapters. The 18th chapter is a supplementary summarization of the topics discussed before. In every chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna stresses that devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. This same point is summarized in the 18th chapter as the most confidential path of knowledge. In the first 6 chapters, stress was given to devotional service. Of all yogis or transcendentalists, one who always think of me within himself is best. In the next 6 chapters, pure devotional service and its nature and activity were discussed. In the third 6 chapters, knowledge, renunciation, the activities of material nature and transcendental nature and devotional service were described. It was concluded that all acts should be performed in conjunction with the Supreme Lord, represented by the word Om Tat Sat, which indicate Vishnu, the Supreme Person. The third part of Bhagavad Gita has shown that devotional service and nothing else is the ultimate purpose of life. This has been established by citing past acharyas and the Brahma Sutra, the Vedanta Sutra. Certain impersonalists consider themselves to have a monopoly on the knowledge of the Vedanta Sutra, but actually the Vedanta Sutra is meant for understanding devotional service, for the Lord himself is the composer of the Vedanta Sutra and he is its knower. That is described in the 15th chapter. In every scripture, every Veda, devotional service is the objective. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita. And in the 2nd chapter, a synopsis of the whole subject matter was described. In the 18th chapter also the summary of all instruction is given. The purpose of life is indicated to be renunciation and attachment of the transcendental position above the 3 material modes of nature. Arjun wants to clarify the 2 distinct subject matters of Bhagavad Gita, namely renunciation, tyag, and the renounced order of life, sannyas. Thus he is asking the meaning of these 2 words. 2 words used in this verse to address the Supreme Lord, Harsikesa and Kesi Nisudana, are significant. Harsikesa is Krishna, the master of all senses, who can always help us attain mental serenity. Arjun requests him to summarize everything in such a way that he can remain equipoised. Yet he has some doubts, and doubts are always compared to demons. He therefore addresses Krishna as Kesi Nisudana. Kesi was the most formidable demon who was killed by Lord, and now Arjun is expecting Krishna to kill the demon of doubt. Now coming to the 2nd shloka, which says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the giving up of activities that are based on material desire is what great learned men call the renounced order of life, sannyas, and giving up the results of all activities is what the wise call renunciation, tyag. Now coming to the explanation of this shloka. The performance of activities for results has to be given up. This is the instruction of Bhagavad Gita, but activities leading to advanced spiritual knowledge are not to be given up. This will be made clear in the next verses. In the Vedic literature, there are many prescriptions of methods for performing sacrifice for some particular purpose. However, sacrifice for the purification of one's heart or for advancement in the spiritual science should not be given up. Now coming to the 3rd shloka, which says, some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up as faulty, yet other sages maintain the acts of sacrifice, charity and penance should never be abandoned. Now coming to the 4th shloka, which says, O best of the Bharats, now hear my judgment about renunciation. O tiger among men, renunciation is declared in the scriptures to be of 3 kinds. Now coming to the explanation of the shloka. Although there are differences of opinion about renunciation, here the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, gives his judgment, which should be taken as final. After all, the Vedas are different laws given by the Lord. Here the Lord is personally present and his word should be taken as final. The Lord says that the process of renunciation should be considered in terms of modes of material nature in which they are performed. Now coming to the 5th shloka, which says, acts of sacrifice, charity and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity and penance purify even the great souls. Now coming to the explanation of the shloka. The yogis should perform acts for the advancement of human society. There are many purificatory processes for advancing a human being to spiritual life. If charity is given to suitable persons, as described previously, it leads one to advanced spiritual life. Now coming to the sixth slok, which says, all these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Partha. That is my final opinion. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. Although all sacrifices are purifying, one should not expect any result by such performances. In other words, all sacrifices which are meant for material advancement in life should be given up. But sacrifices that purify one's existence and elevate one to the spiritual plane should not be stopped. Everything that leads to Krishna consciousness must be encouraged. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also, it is said that any activity which leads to devotional service to the Lord should be accepted. That is the highest criterion of religion. A devotee of the Lord should accept any kind of work, sacrifice or charity which will help him in the discharge of devotional service to the Lord. Now coming to the seventh slok, which says, prescribed duties should never be renounced. If one gives up his prescribed duties because of illusion, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. Work for material satisfaction must be given up, but activities which promote one to spiritual activity, like cooking for the Supreme Lord or offering the food to the Lord and then accepting the food, are recommended. Now coming to the eighth slok, which says, anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear of bodily discomfort is said to have renounced in the mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. One who is in Krishna consciousness should not give up earning money out of fear that he is performing fruitive activities. If by working one can engage his money in Krishna consciousness, or if by rising early in the morning one can advance his transcendental Krishna consciousness, one should not desist out of fear or because such activities are considered troublesome. Such renunciation is in the mode of passion. The result of passionate work is always miserable. If a person renounces work in that spirit, he never gets the result of renunciation. Now coming to the ninth slok, which says, O Arjun, when one performs his prescribed duty only because it ought to be done, and renounces all material association and all attachment to the fruit, his renunciation is said to be in the mode of goodness. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. Prescribed duties must be performed with this mentality. One should act without attachment for the result. He should be disassociated from the modes of work. A man working in Krishna consciousness in a factory does not associate himself with the work of the factory, nor with the workers of the factory. He simply works for Krishna. And when he gives up the result for Krishna, he is acting transcendentally. Now coming to the 10th slok, which says, the intelligent renouncer situated in the mode of goodness, neither hateful of inauspicious work, nor attached to auspicious work, has no doubts about work. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. A person in Krishna consciousness or in the mode of goodness does not hate anyone or anything which troubles his body. He does work in a proper place and at a proper time without fearing the troublesome effects of his duty. Such a person situated in transcendence should be understood to be the most intelligent and beyond all doubts in his activities. Now coming to the 11th slok, which says, it is indeed impossible for an embodied being to give up all activities, but he who renounces the fruits of action is called one who has truly renounced. Now coming to the explanation of this shlok. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that one can never give up work at any time. Therefore, he who works for Krishna and does not enjoy the fruit of results, offers everything to Krishna, is actually a renouncer. There are many members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness who work very hard in their office or in the factory or some other place, and whatever they earn they give to the society. Such highly elevated souls are actually sannyasis and are situated in the renounced order of life. It is clearly outlined here how to renounce the fruits of the work and for what purpose fruits should be renounced. Now coming to the 12th slok, which says, for one who is not renounced the threefold fruits of action, desirable, undesirable and mixed, accrue after death. But those who are in the renounced order of life have no such result to suffer or enjoy. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. A person in Krishna consciousness acting in knowledge of his relationship with Krishna is always liberated. Therefore, he does not have to enjoy or suffer the results of his acts after death. Now coming to the 13th slok, which says, O mighty armed Arjun, according to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these from me. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. A question may be raised that since any activity performed must have some reaction, how is it that a person in Krishna consciousness does not suffer or enjoy the reactions of work? The Lord is citing Vedanta philosophy to show how this is possible. He says that there are 5 causes for all activities, and for success in all activity, one should consider these 5 causes. Sankhya means the stock of knowledge, and Vedanta is the final stock of knowledge accepted by all leading acharyas. Even Sanskara accepts Vedanta Sutra as such, therefore such authority should be consulted. The ultimate control is invested in the Supersoul. He is engaging everyone in certain activities by reminding him of his past actions. And Krishna consciousness acts done under his direction from within yield no reaction, either in this life or in the life after death. Now coming to the 14th shloka, which says, the place of action, the body, the performer, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the Supersoul. These are the 5 factors of action. Now coming to the explanation of this shloka. The words Adhisthanam refers to the body. The soul within the body is acting to bring about the results of activities and is therefore known as Karta, the doer. That the soul is the knower and the doer is stated in the Shruti. The instruments of actions are the senses, and by the senses the soul acts in various ways. But for each and every action there is a different endeavor. But all one's activities depend on the will of the Supersoul, who is seated within the heart as a friend. The Supreme Lord is the super cause. Under these circumstances, he who is acting in Krishna consciousness, under the direction of the Supersoul situated within the heart, is naturally not bound by any activity. Those in complete Krishna consciousness are not ultimately responsible for their actions. Everything is dependent on the Supreme Will, the Supersoul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now coming to the 15th shloka, which says, whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind or speech is caused by these 5 factors. Now coming to the explanation of this shloka. The words right and wrong are very significant in this verse. Right work is work done in terms of the prescribed directions in the scriptures, and wrong work is done against the principles of the scriptural injunctions. But whatever is done requires these 5 factors for its complete performance. So we have completed the first 15 shlokas of this chapter, and we are going to continue with the 16th shlok in the next video. My name is Disha, and I will see you all in the next video.